It says we're live. Okay.
Going
Oh,
I can see it just streaming on my computer. It's just opening up YouTube now. So I'll just give it 30 seconds. Not that you need to worry about that.
oh, it says we're live. Okay.
Going.
Oh,
Great. Welcome everybody. Put my teeth in. Welcome everybody to day 3 of strawberry picking. Our final day of having plays released on the website. So hopefully everybody's been able to watch today's plays as well as the rest of the weeks. Welcome to our third and final writers panel, today hosted by the wonderful, incredible Joel McCormack. Handing over to you. Welcome. Thanks for joining us.
thanks, Sarah. Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us on YouTube if you're here. I am so excited to talk to these wonderful writers about their amazing plays. So why don't we start with just introducing yourselves, writers, and say what your play is, and just like a little tiny summary of what it's about for those of us who need a reminder or just to refresh our brains. So Olivia, why don't we start with you?
Hi, I'm Olivia. I'm the writer of The Puppet Show. The Puppet Show is basically some twisted dystopian tale. It's a film and it's wonderful. There's a lot of rhyme. It's great. I recommend it.
Brilliant. Tatiana?
Yes. Hi, I'm Tatiana Ashbourne. I wrote Dirty Talk and it was directed by Ariana Xeno. So I wrote Dirty Talk. Well, Dirty Talk is about sex and things relating to sex, from masturbation, porn, foreplay, etc. And it's basically about what we do and don't know about all of those topics. So yeah.
Fantastic. And Sam?
My name is Sam Balch and I wrote Good Morning, I Love You. It's about how a family deal with the dad getting a stroke, and it's kind of interlinked with the complex relationship between parents and teenagers. Yeah. Fantastic.
You've already done what I've found the hardest job as a writer, which is to sum up your play in like 2 sentences. You've done a great job of that. So, well, I'd like to start with another really basic question. Olivia, let's start with you again. Why did you want to write this play? Where did the inspiration come from?
I was sitting on the train and I was going to school and I just saw this chimney and it was just piping smoke. I was like, that can't be too good. So then all these ideas, I was seeing these men on strings just being controlled, and I was like, this could be a good play. And we were actually studying Brecht, I think. And one of my classmates was meant to be this character. And he got his slave to lie on the floor and he was like, wipe your feet on this man. And they all wiped their feet on this man as they were entering his house. I was like, that would be a good idea for a play. And that's how my play started.
Fantastic. Brilliant. Tatiana?
So I wrote Dirty Talk because I felt that there's so much that I needed to know, and I felt that other people need to know as well. And I want to discuss people's first times and their experiences, because I feel like everything. Oh no, I don't know how to say it. That everything is so useful to know, and the fact that there's so much we don't know, and it's a very personal subject to me. Not that, not necessarily whether sex is special or not special to me, as in I talk about it a lot with my family and my friends, and I felt like it was always something that I was so intrigued about and wanted to know more, and about people's relationships and everything, and knowing how different things work, and for people to understand that everything, if that
You're doing great.
For people to understand that their first time can mean anything to them, and sex can be whatever they want it to be, and for people to be able to communicate that and to get that across.
Yeah, thanks for the generosity in your answer to that one, because I know I've listened to your play and it's so wonderfully personal and honest in the way you describe it. And I know as writers, sometimes these things feel weirdly like intimate to talk about in public. So thanks for being so generous in your answer. Sam, what about you?
Well, like Olivia, I was actually sitting on the train too, and I was listening to a Radiohead song, Everything in Its Right Place. And I just had a vision for just like this movement piece about a family member dying, and you'd see their life up until that moment. None of that was included in the final cut of the script, but I kind of got that idea from there. And I was like, over Christmas and stuff, I was just trying to work with like different ideas. So had an idea for like a boy going to the army as just one play, but that kind of, I tried to interlink all of my ideas, and that's Good Morning, I Love You is what the final outcome of it was. But yeah.
Amazing. Well done. And so let's go back then to that. You've led us nicely, Sam, onto that, the beginnings of these ideas. Let's go back to right at the beginning of that process. Where did that process start for you, and what was it like, Olivia? What was the process of writing it like? Did it happen very quickly? Was it very slow and drawn out and painful process, or did you write it over one evening? Talk to us a bit about how you attacked this, because it's a pretty massive piece of work, actually.
It was giant, and there was so much that I wanted to include and so much I wanted to talk about, but I knew I had to compact it to 20 pages. So I just started off as a vision. It was just a vision. I just like to think, so I think of visions, and I just saw all these images. I want so many just visual gestures and images to be on the screen. Well, it's going to be a show at first, so on stage. So I was just thinking, and I don't really write for other people, I kind of write for myself. So if I want a 2-deck stage setup, I'll write a 2-deck stage setup, but like, you guys can sort that out as a director at a theatre, but if I want it, I'm going to write it. So I just wrote all my thoughts, and some ideas came from dreams, which is crazy, but some of my favorite lines I dreamt. So I wrote those down. Then I saw the characters, so I just saw characters, I just wrote everything down that just popped into my mind. I was like, oh, that could be fun, that could be interesting. So yeah, I just popped it all down on a page, and it just became what it was.
Yeah, so it was more of like capturing ideas and just getting them down.
Yeah.
Did that change much, Olivia, over the process of writing it, or were you surprised by anything moving about in a different direction to what you'd thought?
Well, of course, there was the big change of it becoming from a stage show to an online show. And I kind of I didn't really know how to feel about that, because it's such a physical show and it's meant to be a really physical visual show, but it works so well. I was so lucky to have Hannah as my director, because she just took all my ideas as a blank canvas and she changed that canvas, and it came out like a piece of art. Well, it is a piece of art, and it just came out so perfectly, and I was just so proud to watch it.
Lush, and we'll talk about more what that process was of transitioning in a minute. But Tatiana, tell me a bit about what the process was like for you. How did you take these thoughts and get them, organise them in terms of sorting them into a play?
Yeah, so I wrote half a play before. So we got, I knew that we had to write a play from year 10 or year 11. And I thought, okay, I'm gonna be organised. I'm gonna start doing it now. And then it got to the point that we had to write a play. And I was thinking, oh my goodness, I have no ideas. I don't know what I'm going to do. And then I asked my parents and my family, and they gave me an idea and everything. And I thought, okay, great. Yeah, let's just rattle through it and get it done. And then that's it. And then I realized actually, so I wrote that half of that play. And then I realized, oh, you know what? It's not, I'm not feeling it. It's not good enough. And I thought, you know what? I actually really do want to get it put on. So I'm gonna try even harder and write about a topic that's close to me or anything or something. And then I spoke to my friends, and I was really struggling to think of a topic and everything. And we were just discussing our lives and everything. And I feel like when you're getting older, the thing that people talk about most is relationships or sex, and when you're ready to do it, when you're not ready to do it, and everything. And so then my friends were like, why don't you just write about this, because I seem to talk about it a lot, which is a bit embarrassing, but and so yeah, why don't you do that? So I did. And then writing it, because it's not a consecutive story all the way through, it's all different scenes, different people each time. I read a book, I read a play and watched a play called Blank by Alice Birch, and I was really inspired by the way she wrote that. So that's how I wrote Dirty Talk. And actually there was a lot of scenes that aren't in the radio edit that are still in the script. And so I was quite lucky with how I would write it, because I could do any scene at any time, and I could write so many different things, and I had a long list of what to write about, and I didn't manage to write about it all because otherwise it would go on forever. And then I interviewed a lot of my friends, and a lot of it's verbatim, so what they said I just put and wrote down straight on the paper without changing any of the words or anything. So yeah, but I was lucky, and I got friends to help write it and talk about it and everything else, and to read the scenes with me. So yeah, and I felt organized by the end of it, that I got it done. So yeah.
Fantastic. Sam, what about you? How did you start to organize your train thoughts into a draft of a play?
Well, so I started with like 3 main ideas, and I can't remember what one of them was, but it was a bit rubbish. So I had these 2 ideas, and I was seeing where I could take both of them. So I started writing lines from for the army play, and those are actually included in Good Morning, I Love You. And so I already had those lines, and then I tried those lines out on my parents to see what their response would be to them.
Yeah.
And so their responses are the responses of the mum in the play. Then I had seen I saw strawberry picking at the new Wimbledon Theatre last year. Mm-hmm. So I had an idea of like the space and stuff. And so I tried, when I was writing it, I tried to keep that in mind. So like what I could put on there. And I came up with the play taking place from the perspective of just the living room, and all the other scenes happen like outside. And so it was quite hard to try and get people, like the audience, to know what's happening in the moment without like fully saying it. And then it kind of, all the ideas came together and it made the final piece. And the final scene was just like, it was quite close to the deadline, and I just started writing just these ideas that I had, and that's kind of what the final monologue is.
Fantastic, brilliant. Thanks everyone. And I'd love to ask you about directors, and at what point the directors came on board with your plays, and how that sort of changed your understanding of it. Inevitably, that's going to have been, my understanding is you wrote these plays for the stage, and then the pandemic changed the shape of that. So I'd love you to talk a bit about what you thought it was going to be, and had you had conversations with the director before we'd moved into this new Zoom format, and what that did to the work. Olivia?
Right. So I initially visualized it to be some kind of Brechtian, over-the-top kind of melodramatic show with these big characters, puppets, strings, and yeah. But then it became, well, first we weren't sure if it's going to be a radio play or a show. I thought it's not going to work as a radio play. I don't think it's going to work. But Hannah, my director, came into my life and changed everything. She came in, and I think the first thing, she called me and she's like, I've just read your play, it's absolutely amazing, I love it, I need to read it some more times, I'm going to write down some notes, I'm going to get them all down, and I'm just gonna, she just spat all these ideas at me, and I took those ideas. So I was very involved as well, which I loved. I was very involved with the process. It wasn't just her taking it and changing it something. It became almost our play, and our show, and it made it so amazing. And it ended up more interactive and personal to the audience, because there's some bits where you can, not to spoil it, to click things. And there's some bits where you can like play with the things, and you can make some choices in the play. So it actually became more in like an interactive game, which I love. So that's how it sort of changed my director.
Yeah, so originally it was much more of the audience are over here and they're watching experience, whereas it's, and that's really clear. And can you, Olivia, talk a bit more about the amazing like puppet work in your show? Yes. How did that come about, and who did that?
Okay, so it started off, so there was two main bits. There was the bit that was kept, which is the shadow puppetry. And I saw it, I was like, I know it's called The Puppet Show, and I want, and I will have shadow puppetry at some point in this play, because I love visual imagery. I love it so much. I'm really bad. I don't know who did it. Sam, if you know who did the puppetry.
Hannah did it.
Hannah, there we go. Amazing Hannah did the puppetry. She kept it in. That was great. And then there was another character called Master, and I wanted him to be another puppet, but a big kind of ensemble puppet.
Yeah.
But sadly, social distancing, that couldn't happen. But they ended up animating that character, which just added so much more, and I really love that. So.
Fab. Sam, what about you? How did the director change your relationship to your work?
Well, I initially had the idea of it being put on as a play, so I kind of wrote it for that. And then when we got told about it was going to be like either film or radio, I was like, okay, so it's going to be changed quite dramatically. And so it couldn't be put on for like technicalities which change the perspective of the play. The radio play actually worked really well, I'd say.
Agreed.
That's pretty much my answer.
Tell me a bit more about your relationship with your director. Were there a lot of drafts after they came on board with the play? Did they change your thinking about it?
I initially had a talk with Sel, who was the director, and so he was thinking it will be a film, and so I was like, okay, I'll get on board with that and stuff. And then I just saw the process like develop like from the outside, because I almost gave it over to him.
Okay, so a different style to Olivia you're getting.
Yeah, because I feel like it was as much his work as it was my work.
Yeah.
So I wanted to give him that freedom of, here's the script that I've just given to you. You can go and do whatever you like with it. So I feel like by handing it over was a good decision. Yeah.
Wicked. Tatiana, what about you?
So me and Ariana were discussing before it got put on or chosen or whatever. We were discussing the play, and she was one person that I would send my play to, and she would read it, and we were discussing all our plans for it in the future and things. And then it turned out that she got director for it, and it just made me so happy, because we had been talking about it for so long and it actually happened. And so it's funny, because when writing it, so there aren't any stage directions in the play, or very little, if there are a few. And I kept thinking, I do not want to direct it. This is horrible, because it's all up to the cast and it's all up to the director. And so obviously handing it over was sort of what I was wanting to do anyway.
Yeah.
I had full trust in Ariana because I knew that she would know what I'd won, and because we had discussed it, so she knew what my feelings were towards it and what I want to get across to everyone, that it's not an awkward subject to talk about. It's natural. It's what everyone talks about, and why should it be something that you should hide? And so giving it to her was hard at points because I was thinking, oh no, what's going on? You know, because I don't know. And also I said to her, don't tell me anything. I don't want to know. So when she had made the characters and given parts, I was like, don't tell me. I don't want to know, because I was so worried that I'll be like, no, you know. And so yeah, and it was quite funny because my flatmate, she's actually in it. And so I could, when she was recording it, I could hear everything. And I was in my room trying not to listen because I was like, I don't want to know. But yeah, so I was so happy that I did trust her, and that she, from the very beginning, we had talks about it and calls and everything. And so she was just excited as I was. So yeah.
Fab. Thank you, everyone. I'm going to ask you one more question before I ask these YouTube questions you've had coming in, which is, was there anything that like surprised you about the end product? Like something that you didn't know that that's quite what you meant, or something about the form that opened up, something about your ideas in a different way? That's the sort of first strand of the question. And the next one would be, if you started the process again, would there be anything that you changed about it from a writer perspective, like in a way that you didn't think you were totally clear about stuff, or you wish you'd been more generous in certain aspects of it, or you'd rather have been in the rehearsals? I'll open that up to anyone who wants to answer it first. Go on, Sam.
Okay. So, wait, what was the first question again?
Were you surprised by anything in the performance?
I was surprised that the mother was played by two characters. However, it worked really well with Tatiana and Jordan. That worked really well. It was quite clear, to be honest. So there's nothing that I would change it. I feel like it actually made the piece a lot better. And so I had to be open with that idea, and it actually worked out really well. I would have liked to have made Dex's like character a bit clearer, because I feel like he doesn't, after the scene with the mother, we don't really hear about him too much. So I maybe would have liked to incorporate him a bit more if I had more pages. So
Fab, brilliant. Who wants to go next?
Oh, do you want me to go?
Go ahead.
So it's really stupid, but I didn't think it would be so sexual, and like, even though it's all about it, you know, I wasn't expecting all the sound effects and everything, but it was great. I loved it. But yeah, so that was one thing that I wasn't expecting. But other than that, I think I was open to whatever was going on. I know that next time I know that I want to write more to the play, and I know that there are obviously more scenes that they couldn't put in because of how long or short it had to be. And so obviously there's a lot of stuff that didn't get said in it. So it'll be just changing all of that and everything, and seeing what other things we can incorporate. But there were a few things that, you know, I've thought, oh, I need to rewrite that line because it doesn't quite make sense, which I didn't realize. So I know that next time I would definitely really go, you know, read it with other people, even though I did, but I feel like reading it in different voices other than my own, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I think that's a great thing to take away. What about you, Olivia?
So I don't know how to put this, but it became like more modern and more like personal to our current time. Like all the like shots of like the Black Lives Matter protest made it like relevant to this time. And of course I wasn't expecting that because it was all added in after, but I love it. I love that. I love how like it became just so like, just relevant, and it just added so much flavor to it. Something like I would change or develop is I kind of wrote block scenes, so I knew this is going to happen, this is going to happen, this is going to happen. But then I had to write scenes to get to those scenes, and it's very obvious which scenes are the ones to get to those scenes. So I just like to make it smoother, like a smoother transition along all the scenes. Yeah.
Fantastic. Thanks, everyone. So now I'm going to direct these questions to one person, but if you want to jump in and chip anything else in, then do. So Tatiana, were there ever any moments during writing that you thought about giving up on your play? And if so, when? Well, you've kind of spoken about that a bit already.
Yeah. I think there were moments where I did think, I don't know how to write it. And also the fact that I wrote it because I didn't know anything, you know, and so it was one of those things where I had to research and had to listen to other people's things. And I was thinking, I really hope this point gets across, and that obviously the play is about everyone's point of view. It's not just one. And so knowing that, and also it's not necessarily my point of view, some of what I say, but it's what I wrote because it's other people's point of view, you know, and so it was hard, obviously, trying to incorporate everything and the list I had of topics I wanted that had to be talked about. And so there are points where I was thinking, I don't have any more lines to say. And so I know that it was a lot of my mind. I would be writing a scene, and then in my mind I'll be like, oh no, but now I'm confused because I don't necessarily agree but that's not what I'm trying to say, you know, as myself about a thing that's what I've been through and things. And so then I literally wrote, but my mind's so confusing, you know, and so I actually wrote what I was thinking, and then it just built on the characters and everything, which is
probably a sign that it's a play worth writing, isn't it? If you're thinking, oh my God, what do I think about this? Does anyone else have anything to add to that? Cool, let's move on then. Olivia, what was the biggest obstacle when writing this play?
There was some times where I just kind of got bored. That sounds so bad, but I just got a bit bored. And I had to just keep like pushing myself to find the passion to keep writing and find the characters' voices and what I wanted to say. There was another thing is most of it's in rhyme. So I knew what I wanted the characters to say, but I had to find a way to make everything rhyme because I was like, that's important. Can't really break that. So those were like the two biggest things that I found difficult.
Fab. Does anyone else have anything to add on that? Cool. Sam, what would you consider developing the play further? You kind of just spoke a little bit about there's this character that if you had more pages, you'd like to flesh out a bit. But if so, what would you do with them?
Well, I'd like to have a funeral scene where the son comes back and it's the first interaction between the dad and the son since the stroke. And I feel like I would like to explore Dex's character a lot further because there's a lot more than meets the eye. And I'd like to hear about his experiences more when he was away and he didn't know what was happening with his dad and stuff. And so that's kind of what I'd like to develop further.
Yeah, great. Anyone else?
I know that I'm writing more. So I've been writing for the past couple of weeks more scenes and everything.
For this play?
For my play, for
this play, for Dirty Talk?
Yeah.
Oh,
so
great.
So I'm writing more scenes because I feel like there's so much more I could talk about. So that's what my aim is, and that's what I'm doing. So yeah.
Fantastic. Yeah, and I think as long as you've got that feeling, right, of like my work here is not yet done, then you've got to keep having a look at it. What about you, Olivia? Are there plans beyond this to take it back onto the stage?
I would love so much to see it on the stage. I'd love to get the cast back. I'd love to see it just be performed. I'd love to see it with the puppetry. It'd be amazing if there is a chance or an opportunity to get it on stage. and I'd love to develop it more and keep making sure it's relevant to the time. Yeah.
I'm so excited by you being like excited by it and not like so pleased the play's over, it's been awful. Cool. Our next question is about a bit more about the process. So were there any moments when you were doing your writing workshops at school which changed it? Were there any key changing moments in the writing workshops we did at school? If so, what were they? Does anyone want to take that question up? And maybe a moment where you thought, this is the form it's got to be in, or you've got to kind of cast your mind back pre-pandemic. Olivia, you look like you've got something on the tip of your tongue.
Kind of. At first, I was kind of writing it to please, like, I think I kind of stepped aside it to please the director and to please the stage hand, to make it easy. Like, oh yeah, now you can do this and do this, make it easy. But I was like, no, I want to write for myself. I want to write what I want to write, and I want to add in what I want to write. So I did. I don't have to please anyone or make it easy for them to perform. It's my piece. So I just, yeah. So that kind of changed. I discovered that in the workshops.
Sam?
There was a point where I did decide that the play would take place from the living room's perspective, and it was just seeing all of the people doing my workshop just like interacting and how they'd come into a scene and leave, and that kind of like triggered this idea to make the scene just take place in this one place and have action happen outside, but for it to be brought into the actual scene, and so that the audience have an idea of what's happened. And
those are such important moments, aren't they? Like to go from lots of trained thinking to thinking, okay, if I put it here, then I can make sure that this is the most interesting way to get into the story. What about you, Tatiana?
Yeah, so I thought that the workshops were helpful for me because I know that I needed people's comments, you know, and I needed to talk about these subjects and to interview people because it made what I was writing worth it to make, for me to learn things, for my friends to learn things when we were discussing the topics, you know, and then what they said, I literally just wrote down on the page, you know. So there's scene 1 in the actual script. It's literally just words of everything. What a word association game basically I've got my workshop to do, and then exactly all the words they used I just put in the first scene, and that was it, done. And I thought, you know what, it works for some unknown reason, and because I wanted it to be an abstract play but also people to learn a lot and to people to feel uncomfortable but loving it and want to know more, you know, because I think you have to go through that uncomfortable until actually I needed that, because now I want to talk about my experiences and stuff like that. So yeah.
Fantastic. The next question is about form, really. Now that you've seen your play in radio or film, what would you want to put it on stage in the future, or would you keep it how it is? So maybe particularly talking about any moments that you think really work in this film or radio format that you hadn't anticipated. Does anyone want to take that? I'm looking at you, Olivia, because I think the puppet show works so well in this form. I kind of can't imagine it being better.
I do love it in this form, but I think there's also that element, there's the interaction element, but there's something, just seeing something on stage that just makes it so much better and so much more alive. But I would keep that animation. I've discovered so much about seeing it in film. I could keep it at the animation, I'd keep the shadow puppetry, but also just putting it on stage just really changes everything. And for an audience perspective, yeah. So, yeah.
What about you, Sam? Has there been anything about this, presenting it in this way that's, you know, because in a way, setting your play in one place gives it quite a specific kind of theatrical setting, doesn't it? And has this rubbed off in it in a good way?
Definitely, yeah. It really worked as a radio play because I was listening to it yesterday and today, and I was thinking everything that the play would have, the radio play has, apart from the visuals, obviously. But I just think that I would obviously like to see it as a play.
Yeah.
Because I feel like I could develop it further.
Yeah.
And have that, like, it's more, I don't know, the connection between the audience and the dad in the final scene would be a lot stronger, I feel, if it was as a play. However, it still works really well as a radio play.
Yeah. And I feel like this question is touching on like what a big question that we're asked as writers a lot, which is like, why is this a play? Why is it on stage? Why do we need to be in the room with it? And I think Olivia and Sam, you've both raised really good points about things that we can borrow from this work, but it doesn't necessarily erase the urgency of it as a play. Anything to add, Tatiana?
What for my play and what I would do with it?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I would definitely like to see it on a stage, but I do think being a radio, I think it was great because it's just a chat, and
Yeah.
you know, and it works because I listen to podcasts all the time that are talking about different things, and I find it so interesting. And I know that I want to do a podcast for people to talk about their first times and for people to learn new things. So that's definitely one thing I do want to do, but I definitely want to progress it as a play and see it on stage as well. So yeah.
The playwright Jeremy O. Harris, I don't know if anyone's heard of him. In his early work, he's very famous on Broadway for writing a play called Slave Play. But in his early work, always made a website for as another place to go in kind of conversation with the play, which sounds a lot like what you're doing there, Tatiana. Mm-hmm. It's really exciting that this technology has opened out all of this other stuff around the world of the play. It's really cool. Fun question now. From your play, which character would you cast yourself as and why? Sam?
The dad. I'll say the dad because when I was writing it, the final scene, I had the image of, I don't know, an actor like Matt Smith playing the dad, and yeah. I don't know, that's kind of what I'd like to like put into the play, and I feel like the connection with the audience could be like quite strong. Yeah.
Great. Tatiana?
Oh, it's such a hard question because obviously there's different characters in every scene, and there's so many different things. So I couldn't really tell you one, but then if I had to be in a scene, I mean, I love the wanking scene, because where the girls are talking about it, because I know that was literally a conversation I had with my mates, and so, you know, I quite like that, and the one person's thinking, oh my god, and the others are, oh wow, yeah, I do that, you know. So it's so different. I don't know which character I would be, but I know that scene I feel like I could play around with and make it a fun scene. So yeah.
Olivia?
I would love to play Man, just because there's so many fun like rhymes and just so much fun you can have with that character. I mean, it's serious, you have this seriousness, but there's like the family dinner scene where he's like jumping on the tables, like all these fun bits that you can just play with.
Fab. Tatiana's kind of answered this question, so let's come to you with this one, Sam. Were there any ideas for the play that you had that you scrapped for your final idea? If so, what were they?
Well, it was my initial idea, which I scrapped, where I had this movement piece to the Radiohead song, and I thought that could really work. However, I feel like within the setting of it being like, there had to be like a maximum amount of cast members, and so I feel like if it was to be taken outside of school, I would have liked to have included like a physical like theatre thing with like an ensemble.
Yeah, lovely.
Yeah,
brilliant. This one specifically for you, Olivia. What inspired you to use rhyme in your play, and why did you make this artistic choice?
I don't know if this is going to be a really boring answer. Well, there's like two reasons. The first reason is I just think it'd be fun. I was like, it was kind of like a challenge for me. I was like, I want to challenge myself to write something different. So I was like, oh, that'd be nice. Just a nice little push for me personally. And yeah, just I was like trying to keep it interesting for myself, to keep myself motivated. So that's mainly why. And that was like one of my first ideas. So I was like, rhyme. That's what we're going to do. That's what's going to keep me personally interested in writing this and creating this.
Fab. And I'd love to open that up to the two of you, Tatiana and Sam, about your voice as a writer and what you felt like. Did it take you some time to think, actually, this doesn't, you know, when you heard the radio plays back, did you think, oh yeah, that kind of sounds like me? I know you worked in a kind of verbatim way, Tatiana, but were there things you were surprised by your voice? You know, when I write, sometimes I feel like, oh, I sound very serious about that, when I'm actually meant it to be quite playful. Or was there anything about your voice through the actors that really surprised you about your own work?
Oh, such a good question. I feel that obviously because I did it in a verbatim way, I knew how the people actually who I wrote about said those lines. And so I found that really weird, hearing someone else and thinking, oh, what will that person think listening to it? And if that was their scene that I wrote about. And I think that was what I was most stressed about when giving my play, thinking, will they get it right? But I said to Ariana that there's no right or wrong with how you say my lines, because I want the actors to say it as naturally as possible and how they would, because it's something that I want to get across, that it's like, you know, it's how they want it and how they feel it would be, and how not everyone's first times are perfect, and you don't have to call that your first time if you don't want it to be your first time, you know. And so obviously when reading it, I read some lines in my head, but at the same time I was always so open and thought about who I could imagine playing those lines, saying those lines. So it was okay listening to other people, but at the same time I would maybe word a few things differently to make it sound a bit more natural, if you know what I mean. So yeah.
Great. Sam?
There were points in the radio play where I was thinking, oh, it's a bit like wordy and unnatural, and I was thinking, oh, I would have liked to like tweak that a little bit. I worked hard. When I was writing the play, I worked mostly on like characterizations, because I wanted to make the characters all like different and like clear to the audience, and I hope that came across. I almost used my voice for Dex a little bit, because I tried to see what I would sound like to my mom, because she thinks I'm like a bit moody and stuff, and so I'd like to see her perspective on me from the outside, and so that's kind of Dex. And then the mum is just pretty much just what my mum said. So yeah, that's pretty much the characters. And I wanted to make the neighbor, I wanted to make her almost like a version of the mum, like before the stroke, because before the stroke I saw her as almost like quite a free person, but she became uptight because of the event, and that's like what I saw. Like I tried to work on the characterization of that. Yeah.
Fantastic, thank you. Somebody's asked, what's your favorite part of the play? I think we've touched on this a bit, but Olivia, why don't you lead on that?
The first scene I wrote, and my favorite scene, is Master's scene, which became the animation scene. Oh, I just love that scene, and it was the first scene I wrote. It's the most detailed scene I wrote, and I loved it. To see it be performed, oh, it was just so magical. I was literally crying at home watching it, like, oh my god, these are my words, this is my, my characters. It was, so good.
Tatiana?
I liked it all. I definitely liked the scene about the grooming, because I felt like that that came across what we were trying to say. It's funny though, because that is actually 3 pages long in the actual script, and to see it get cut down and to see the different version of how they said it and everything was so interesting. And also I really liked Phone Call, that scene, that's what the scene's called, and about them, you know, having a walking in and seeing each other after they've had sex and talking about if it was bad or if it wasn't. And I thought that was, I love seeing that come to life, and that was said in a different way to how I would say it. And so I thought that was interesting to watch, and I think that it's such a sweet scene, but at the same time so awkward to listen to, because it's like, oh no, you know, why? So yeah.
Favorite part, Sam?
One of my favorite parts was definitely the voicemail scene at the start, because it's like introducing the characters, but not in a like, these are your characters. So kind of like gently introduce them to the play, and like you could get like clear idea of who they were as a character at the start of the play. And then I just love like the progression of the play, and then at the end how all of it kind of ties together. And
Fantastic. Nice one. But we're coming to our final 2 questions now. So were there any specific exercises, writing exercises that you use, either I suppose that you learned from the workshops that you were doing at school, or stuff that you'd overheard in elsewhere? Tatiana?
I obviously found it sort of easier knowing that it was verbatim, so a lot of it was, so I could interview people and just literally say what they said. I think I also, because there were so many characters, I had a lot of characters to have the voice of, so I know that thinking about the characters more and who each person was and how they sort of relate, they all relate in different ways, you know, and so I think definitely looking into the characters was something that I used and developed on. So yeah.
Sam?
I used the writing technique 20 questions to create all my characters, because I did want them to all be individuals and have their own lives, and see what I could find out about them that might not like come across in like my first bit of writing. So I go back and I do it for each like draft. I do the 20 questions to see if they changed, if their secrets have changed, or, like their perspective on like life or home or anything like that. And so it kind of gave them, the characters, more of a like 3D aspect to them. Yeah.
Fab. Olivia?
We did this one task in class where we got given a photo and we just had to write about that photo, and I think mine was a man in like plastic wrap with a barcode, and I just took that and I wrote like a scene, and I ended up just whacking that scene in as like a filler scene, one of the very obvious filler scenes, but it worked out quite nicely and they took it on and they changed it. So yeah, I guess that's the closest I got.
Fab. Thank you, everyone. So the last question I want to ask everyone is, you've all written one play now. You're one play into your career as a playwright. I want to ask you what you're planning on next. Do you want to continue developing this play or the next play, or you know, how you want to develop what you've learned, what you're taking with you from this experience? Just a bit of reflection on what this is, how this has changed you as an artist, I suppose. Sam, why don't you kick us off?
I've learned a lot about how much You need to be organized and focused, and you need to like I gave myself like deadlines for each time that I wanted to do the draft, so that helped. I do want to develop the play that I've written further, and then I've started writing another play. So yeah, I feel like I'll be able to take the skills that I've learned from writing this into like my future plays. Yeah.
Amazing. I'm so pleased. Olivia?
I've just learned so much. Like I've like found my own style of writing, and I've really enjoyed just finding my own creativity and how to put it out. And I'm always just writing down little notes and little ideas and little starters to scenes and characters. So I've always got something, and I'd really like to, as I say, develop this play and perform it somewhere and take people's feedback and other people's ideas and just place them and pop them down and create something.
Amazing. Tatiana, tell us more about your podcast.
Yeah, so hopefully I'll be doing the podcast and just interviewing people about their first times and experiences, which should be exciting. I want to put the play on, develop the scenes, and create more and talk to people and educate people, whether people have questions, and then we'll set up a platform for people to talk to and stuff like that. But yeah, put my play on, develop it. And also I want to write new plays. I write monologues, so just developing those into plays. And I think I've learned that take every opportunity and just be excited by it, because me being excited by it made me want to work even more, you know, and wanted so badly my play to be put on that I couldn't believe when it got put on, because then you have that some belief in yourself that you can do it. So yeah, just be excited and take the opportunities that you get given.
Amazing. I think that's such an elegant, in true writerly fashion, Tatiana, you've elegantly led me to the end of the Q&A. Just all that's left to say really is thank you so much to these three amazing writers for being so generous in their responses to the questions this morning, and thanks everyone for watching it. These were such brilliant pieces of work. I'm so excited by you. I found this conversation so energizing. So I hope you spend a summer on your computers writing as much as you have a nice time. Sarah, hello, Sarah.
Here. Hey, Joel. Thank you so much for coming along to host our panel.
My pleasure.
As you've said, it's been so excellent just to have an insight into the writing. Yeah, what a wonderful way to start day 3 of strawberry picking. And panelists, if you stay where you are, I'm going to stop the live stream in just a moment. But thank you so much for joining us on YouTube. We're back at 2:15 to talk to the directors of these plays. So we'll hope to see you then. Thank you so much.